The sharp sound of thick parchment being ripped in half echoed across the main exhibition hall. A red-green colorblind amateur thinks she can design the simulation backgrounds for our next-generation spacecraft? The chief art director sneered as he threw the torn pieces of Clara's nebula sketch right at her worn sneakers. "Get out of here, before you embarrass yourself further." Clara did not flinch. Even though her hands were trembling deep inside her jacket pockets, she kept her chin up. She was not standing in this pretentious convention center for her own ego. She had spent 3 sleepless nights mixing pigments to get that exact celestial shade. She desperately needed this freelance contract to keep her free astronomy classes running. Those weekend classes were the only safe haven for underprivileged, disabled children in her neighborhood. Sometimes the world judges you strictly by what your eyes cannot see. They completely ignore the vision, the depth, and the resilience of your heart. If you believe in the blessings given to those who stay resilient, please leave this prayer in the comments below. Lord, I pray you open a path for souls thirsting for the light of truth. And make sure to subscribe to our channel today as we continue planting seeds of hope together. Clara bent down slowly to gather the ruined pieces of her life's work. She was born with mild color blindness, but what the medical charts coldly categorized as a visual defect, the universe had balanced with a rare, undeniable gift. She possessed an extraordinarily high sensitivity to light frequencies. She could easily perceive the subtle shifts in luminosity, depth, and contrast that people with perfect vision completely missed. That was exactly why her hand-drawn space landscapes felt so breathtakingly alive. A few feet away from the harsh commotion stood a man in a faded denim jacket. Arthur looked exactly like any exhausted single father trying to survive a chaotic Saturday afternoon. No one in the room knew he was carrying the weight of a massive empire on his shoulders. He was tightly holding the hand of his 7-year-old daughter, Lily. Lily had severe autism and struggled daily with acute sensory overload. She was currently pressing her small hands hard against her ears. Her chest was heaving rapidly as the echoing noise of the crowded hall began to violently overwhelm her nervous system. Arthur knelt beside her immediately, dropping his heavy backpack to the floor. He whispered gentle reassurances, trying his best to ground her in reality, but his warm words were completely drowned out by the arrogant director's booming voice. "Look at this garbage," the director scoffed loudly for everyone to hear. He pointed a laser pen at a massive LED screen, displaying his own cold, heavily rendered 3D space model. "This is the industry standard. Your little watercolor project belongs on a kindergarten fridge. It certainly does not belong at a multi-million-dollar aerospace summit, hosted by the most prestigious company in the world." The crowd of industry elites murmured in agreement, sipping their expensive champagne. They cast pitiful, condescending glances at Clara's modest clothing. They saw nothing but a disabled artist clinging to a delusional dream. But Clara was no longer paying attention to their cruel whispers. Her attention had shifted entirely to the little girl in the faded overalls. Lily was now letting out a high-pitched cry of sheer, unfiltered distress. The director rolled his eyes in profound annoyance, adjusting his silk tie. He aggressively snapped his fingers and called for the event security to remove the noisy kid and her father. He did not want regular peasants ruining his perfect presentation for the board of investors. But before the heavy-set security guards could even step forward, Clara moved. She completely ignored the director's harsh threats. She bypassed the whispering crowd and knelt right on the polished marble floor, next to Arthur and Lily. Arthur tensed up, his shoulders stiffening, as he instinctively shielded his daughter from another stranger. Clara did not invade their physical space. She just offered a soft, incredibly reassuring smile. That carried no pity, only pure understanding. She reached into her canvas tote bag and pulled out a small, decorative glass prism. It was a simple, scratched teaching tool she always carried to explain light refraction. To her young students, she held it up at a very precise angle, against the harsh glare of the exhibition spotlights. Then, she quickly arranged the torn, colorful pieces of her ruined sketch on the floor directly beneath the prism. The harsh overhead light hit the angled glass. It fractured beautifully, breaking into a spectrum of colors, and bled through the torn paper edges. Suddenly, a breathtaking miniature galaxy of shifting light spilled across the cold floor, right in front of Lily. It was not just a static, boring reflection. Because of how Clara expertly manipulated the angles and her deep understanding of light frequencies, the projection actually pulsed. It flowed and breathed, exactly like a real, living nebula in the deep cosmos. "Do you hear that, Lily?" Clara whispered softly. Her voice was steady, rhythmic, and incredibly warm. "That is the sound of the stars. They are very quiet, and they only speak to those who know how to look with their hearts." Lily's cries stopped abruptly. Her wide, tear-filled eyes locked completely onto the swirling patterns of light on the floor. Her rapid breathing slowed down, matching the gentle, rhythmic pulse of the refracted light. Slowly, the little girl reached out her trembling hand. Her tiny fingers traced the illuminated stardust on the marble, mesmerized by the silent beauty. For the first time in over 6 months, a genuine, relaxed smile spread across Lily's face. Arthur stopped breathing. He stared at his beautiful daughter, completely paralyzed by the miracle unfolding right in front of him. Then, he slowly looked up at Clara. His eyes were welling with an intense emotion that all his money, power, and influence could never buy. Dozens of elite therapists and top-tier medical specialists had tried and failed to reach Lily. Yet this humble stranger had done it effortlessly. A woman who had just lost her entire career in front of a mocking crowd had unlocked his daughter's isolated world in mere seconds. Compassion is a unique frequency that transcends all human barriers. If you feel the incredible power of this beautiful moment, please comment below. Lord, I pray you open a path for souls thirsting for the light of truth. The beautiful silence was suddenly shattered by a loud, obnoxious clap. The chief art director marched over, his face flushed with absolute fury and unchecked ego. He could not stand being ignored at his own presentation, especially not by people he considered completely beneath him. "Are you completely deaf?" I said, "Get this garbage out of my exhibition hall right now." He aggressively signaled for the 2 large corporate security guards standing by the grand entrance. "Throw this delusional, disabled woman and these 2 homeless-looking beggars out onto the street. They are completely ruining the high-end aesthetic of our multi-million-dollar corporate event." The guards took a heavy step forward, their hands reaching out to aggressively grab Clara's shoulder, but they never got the chance to touch her. Arthur slowly stood up, gently letting go of Lily's small hand and making sure she was safely behind him. He did not raise his voice in anger. He did not throw a punch or cause a scene. He simply bent down and picked up the largest torn piece of Clara's nebula sketch from the marble floor. He held it up to the harsh light, his piercing, intelligent eyes locking directly onto the director's arrogant face. "You just called her life's work a pathetic watercolor project for a kindergarten fridge, but looking at this specific pigment blending, the optical accuracy of this stardust cluster is exactly 99%. It perfectly matches the actual, classified light spectrum data retrieved by our orbital telescopes just last week." Arthur then confidently pointed his finger at the massive LED screen displaying the director's expensive, highly rendered 3D model. "Your multi-million-dollar design, on the other hand, is a complete and utter structural failure. You used a standard industrial color palette that would cause severe visual fatigue for astronauts looking through the reinforced quartz windows of a real spacecraft. If we actually used your amateur design for our simulation training, our pilots would be completely disoriented and nauseous. Within 10 minutes of launch, the entire exhibition hall went dead silent. The wealthy investors and industry elites stopped whispering and stared in absolute shock at this scruffy stranger schooling their top designer. The director let out a condescending, nervous laugh, crossing his arms tightly over his chest. "And who exactly do you think you are? Some unemployed janitor who reads science fiction magazines in his mother's basement? You have absolutely no idea who you are messing with, buddy." Before Arthur could even offer a reply, the heavy gold-rimmed glass doors of the hall violently swung open. A large group of men in sharp, incredibly expensive tailored suits rushed into the room, looking completely panicked and out of breath. The man frantically leading the group was the executive vice president of the Aerospace Corporation hosting the summit. The director immediately dropped his tough guy act, pasting on a fake sycophantic smile as he adjusted his silk tie to greet his ultimate boss. But the vice president completely ignored his outstretched hand. He ran straight past the confused director, stopping right in front of Arthur. He bowed his head respectfully, his voice shaking with deep anxiety. "Mr. Chairman, we have been looking for you everywhere. The International Board of Investors has been waiting in the VIP suite for your opening keynote speech." The color instantly drained from the arrogant director's face, leaving him as pale as a ghost. His jaw dropped open in pure horror, and his expensive champagne glass slipped right from his trembling fingers, shattering loudly onto the polished floor. This quiet man in the faded, dusty denim jacket was not a homeless beggar looking for a free meal. He was Arthur Vance, the brilliant billionaire founder and absolute owner of the entire global aerospace empire. Arthur did not even bother to look down at the terrified director groveling at his feet. He kept his warm, appreciative eyes gently fixed on Clara. "You are officially fired," Arthur said calmly, his steady voice echoing with absolute authority through the silent room. "Your design firm's lucrative contract with our corporation is permanently terminated, effective immediately. I will never allow a man with such a narrow, prejudiced mind, and an even narrower heart, to build the future of our space program." The director frantically tried to stammer out a pathetic apology, begging loudly for a second chance to explain himself. But the security guards, the exact same men he had just eagerly called to throw Clara out, swiftly grabbed his arms and escorted him out of the building in absolute disgrace. Arthur turned his full, undivided attention back to the humble woman who had just saved his daughter's afternoon. "Clara, I do not care what any medical chart says about your eyes or your condition. You see the beauty of the universe, clearer than anyone in this entire building. I want to personally buy this sketch for our archives, and I want to officially offer you the position of Chief Space Art Director at my company. Will you come work with us and help us build the stars?" Clara stood there, her hands covering her mouth, as tears of pure disbelief and overwhelming joy streamed down her face. Arthur used his entire technological empire to fiercely protect the sparkling dream of a woman everyone else had callously discarded. If you believe that true justice always finds its way to the righteous, please comment below. Lord, I pray you open a path for souls thirsting for the light of truth. Exactly 6 months later, the heavy steel doors to the corporation's brand new state-of-the-art simulation center opened. It was a massive, dome-shaped facility, built specifically to train the next generation of deep space astronauts. But today, it was not being used for rigorous military training. Millions of tiny, brilliantly colored lights projected flawlessly across the curved, panoramic ceiling. It was a perfect, breathtaking, three-dimensional virtual recreation of Clara's original hand-drawn nebula. Little Lily was running happily across the soft, padded floor of the massive room, She was laughing out loud, reaching her small hands up, and chasing the beautiful beams of light, without a single trace of fear, panic, or anxiety. Clara stood quietly in the center of the room, watching the little girl heal, with a heart full of absolute, undeniable peace. Suddenly, she felt a gentle, familiar tap on her shoulder. She turned around, to see Arthur standing right behind her, completely bathed in the magnificent starlight she had designed with her own 2 hands. He smiled warmly, looking deep into her eyes, and slowly got down on one knee. He pulled a small, elegant velvet box from his pocket, opening it to reveal a diamond ring that sparkled as brightly as the cosmos above them. "You didn't just paint a beautiful universe for my pilots to fly in, Clara. You brought the light back into my family's dark world. Will you marry me?" When Arthur proposed to Clara, beneath the glowing, magnificent stars of her own creation, it was the ultimate, undeniable proof that miracles truly exist. If you can feel the incredible, life-changing magic of this beautiful love story, please leave this prayer in the comments. Lord, I pray you open a path for souls thirsting for the light of truth. Sometimes, the human eye is easily limited by the superficial colors and shapes of the physical world. We are too quick to judge people by their worn-out clothes, their empty bank accounts, or their physical imperfections. But true love and profound, selfless compassion always operate on a completely different frequency. They always find the brightest, most beautiful way to connect 2 broken, searching souls. Never stop looking at the world through the pure, unfiltered lens of your heart. If this incredible story moved you today, please hit that subscribe button to help us spread more positive energy and hope every single day. And before you go, please do not forget to leave our community prayer in the comments one last time. Lord, I pray you open a path for souls thirsting for the light of truth.